I'm a little divided on the coming of age genre. On one hand, I love the themes of growing up and learning life's lessons, but on the other hand, these movies can be sometimes a little bit pretentious. I've pretty much seen all the classics at this point, like Stand By Me, Breakfast Club, The Graduate, and so many others, but there's one highly rated coming of age film that I don't see get talked about as much, and that is Boyhood. Now, I'm a little late to talk about this movie, about 11 years at this point, but I seriously believe more people need to hear about it and watch this movie. This is by far one of the most relatable, if not relatable movies I've ever watched. And no, I'm not just saying that to get you to click on this video, although I hope my title and thumbnail help pique your interest a little bit, but it really is that relatable. To put it simply, this movie doesn't have a story or a central plot point, things just kind of happen randomly, and the dialogue matches this as well. Throughout the entire run of the movie, it follows the life events of its main characters, things like friendships, high school drama, and relationships with parents. It's awkward and kind of choppy, and at a first glance, it can seem like an amateur film director just put this all together. But somehow, through all these anomalies, the movie is actually surprisingly really good and fits the core message at heart. And that's why I want to talk about it today. Now, like I said, this movie has been out for a decent amount of time, and there's been a few videos here and there talking about it, but compared to some of the other movies I mentioned, it wasn't as well received by the average viewer. To this day, there's still a large amount of people that don't understand the point of this movie, almost as misunderstood as the Lost ending. Also, speaking about Lost, retrospective coming out on that soon, stay tuned y'all. Just had to throw that little promotion in there real quick. But yeah, I want to go through it and give a review and explain the movie as well. But don't worry, this won't be a crazy long video though. I won't go too in depth to it to not sound like some video essay YouTuber who talks about random thing no one cares about for like 5 hours. But anyways, let's get into the story of this movie. Oh, and I would say that there's spoilers here, but you can probably tell that the main character is going to grow up throughout the movie and go through life. If you watch this video first, I would still definitely recommend going back and watching the movie. It's good, and it's something that you kind of just have to experience on your own. Be warned though, this movie is long as it is nearly 3 hours, and if you're someone like me who can't watch a movie in one go, thank you TikTok, this one is going to be a bit tougher of a watch. But honestly though, watching this movie in one go is not necessary as it tends to jump around a lot. We quite literally follow 12 real years of one boy growing up. So if you're wondering why the actors look so close to their child counterparts, that's why. The first scene introduces us to the main character, Mason. Hey, he has the same name as me. Mason is a 6-year-old boy that attends first grade, and yeah, that's about it. He also has a sister named Samantha who is 2 years older than him, and his mother Olivia, and not so present dad named Mason Sr. So yeah, the beginning of the movie is pretty much your typical childhood for a lot of kids growing up in the early 2000s. It consists of playing with your friends, dealing with annoying siblings, and the other random parts of early childhood. At this point in the film, not much is being said yet. We briefly explore Mason's relationship with his father. We can tell from some small context that he is irresponsible and still a bit of a kid himself. He, along with Mason Jr., would have to grow up in the movie. And that's basically the early theme that we get introduced. It's not just the kids who grow and learn, but it's also the parents.
What's the point? I mean, I sure as shit don't know. I mean, but neither does anybody else, okay? We're all just winging it. You know?
Mason's mom, Olivia, throughout the movie would have to face several challenges in her life. She's struggling to balance raising her kids and going to college to make a better living. She also has problems with her boyfriends and husbands as she constantly falls into bad relationships. She's someone who is just trying to figure out how to get her life together as an adult. And I love that the movie offers both perspectives of the adults and kids going through life. Although we see this movie through the eyes of Mason, we still get to see little moments like the parents arguing and being stressed and facing other emotions. It's a nice little way of showing their problems as well without taking the focus away from the protagonist. I don't even know if protagonist is the right word to describe him. I mean, I guess he's the main character. Bro's literally the main character. As Mason gets older, Olivia begins to attend to college. This is where we meet the antagonist of the story, Bill. I know I just said that wasn't appropriate to call Mason a protagonist, but this guy is the villain here. Bill at first seems like a good guy when Olivia gets married to him, but as the time passes on, he starts to turn into a drinker. This gets even worse when he begins to become more and more aggressive to the kids and even abuses his wife.
I think that's fucking funny.
Yeah, he's not a very likable character when he gets to this point, but it's also hard because of how realistic the situation can be for some people who grew up with this. Olivia eventually leaves him and becomes a psychology professor. This is the point in the movie where it hits its teenage phase. Mason starts to become more interested in girls and has more questions about life. His dad still visits them every other week and becomes more involved in their lives. He gets a job and he takes Mason on a camping trip. They begin to connect more as he talks about things like girls, music, and movies.
No, Return of the
at
Jedi,
the
it's
end.
over. There's nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing else to do there.
You know, you can turn Han Solo
But-
into a Sith Lord.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
You know, going back to watch this, I can't believe they were actually pretty close with that guess. If only they saw the state of Star Wars today. As the movie goes on, Olivia eventually gets with Jim, who also happens to be a heavy drinker and a jerk himself. It's a bit of a trend with relationships. And yeah, this is where the movie enters its high school philosophical phase. In my opinion, it's the weaker half of the movie as Mason kind of becomes a bit more edgy. This part of the movie is mainly the build up to graduation and starting college. Mason is confused about life and what it all means. He feels like it's kind of pointless and random, basically like every other coming of age movie character. But finally he graduates and goes to college. He meets his new roommates and they decide to go hiking together. He also meets his roommate's friend Barb, and they talk about how instead of seizing the moments, it just seizes you. And then the movie ends. So yeah, that is basically the fastest movie plot explanation I've ever done. Just look at my channel to see the links of my other videos. It probably feels like I jumped around a lot without really connecting the dots, and that's because this is basically the entire movie's structure. Nothing really connects, but yet it does in a way. Unlike many other coming of age movies, there's not one big aha lesson that the characters learn that changes them. The lessons are subtle and take several years to develop. It might not make for a spectacle of a character's growth, but it's very realistic in that way, and I'm sure we can relate to many parts of this movie. Also, I'm not sure why it's a spectacle like that. And since I'm talking about this movie, I also want to bring up a bit of the criticism it has. A lot of people believe that it was better in the first half, and I also happen to agree with this. I thought the lessons were more impactful, and I didn't feel like they were going too heavy with the coming of age tropes. Like, yeah, it jumps around a lot, but we also get to see important moments like their relationship with the parents and dealing with moving and school and all that other great stuff that childhood consists of. But once the movie gets into the high school phase, I felt like it was kind of brief with the time it spent on it. We didn't see anything like school dances, funerals, or learn how to drive, which these are very important life lessons that we learn in high school. You're like, yeah, we see Mason go further with his photography and he has a brief relationship as well, but like there's so many other important things that happen in these adolescent years that would have been essential to shaping him into the person he is today. High school is meant to be the time when you start to make decisions on your own. Something also I think that needs to be mentioned is the acting. For starters, Ethan Hawke, who plays Mason Sr., and Patricia Arquette, I think I pronounced that right, who plays Olivia, they are great as always. I love them. They're great actors. But with Mason and Sam, it's more of a mixed bag in my opinion. Eller, who plays Mason, is never too expressive. In some cases, it's realistic as teenagers, you know, could be awkward and struggle to show emotions, but it can get a little dull when he's in his high school phase. As for Lorelei, I am so sorry if I butchered these names. I think her acting is a bit worse. I thought she was pretty good as a little kid, but once she gets a bit older, every time she says something, it's like she's asking a question. I'm not sure if it's her being portrayed as awkward, but it's the one thing I was able to notice from the acting right away.
Yes.
Like, Mason's performance I don't think is perfect, but it was still passable. And lastly, there's the criticism of the movie having no plot. And this is where you're either going to hate or love the movie. There's no in between. First of all, I will say that if you don't enjoy this movie because of that reason, that's completely fine. But saying that the movie should be more connected, I think is an invalid opinion. I'm glad they went this route, as it's super risky having child actors grow up with this movie, but it's such a unique take on this coming of age genre. Luckily, they never had any major problems with this. I guess though the director's daughter Lorelei, who plays Sam, did want to quit about halfway, which probably explains why her acting gets a little bit dull, but other than that, everything went well with production. But like I said, it's not going to be for everyone. But having a movie that portrays life accurately is something really special in my eyes. Yes, the events seem random, but they all come together to shape Mason in the end. It's meant to show how life affects us and pushes us to become the person we are today. I don't know, you just have to watch the movie and experience it to understand. The best way I can describe this movie is like watching those old videos your mom took of you as a kid, and it's all thrown together in one big compilation. But yet somehow all this randomness is able to make sense with this one line.
Everyone's always saying, seize the moment. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking it's the other way around.
And essentially the whole theme of this movie is that Mason, because of outside influences, has shaped him to the person he is today, which is why the moment sees us instead of us seizing them. We don't realize these things in the moment, but they do play an impactful role in who we become in the future. And that's the theme of Boyhood. So yeah, go watch this movie. Is it something that you'll want to watch again and again like other coming of age movies? Probably not. But that doesn't make its message and theme any less important.